So clinical learning environments are rich and authentic resources for learning. They're great places to learn, but they can also present challenges for staff and for students. For our clinical teachers, they have to balance student learning with patient and client needs, often in busy and sometimes very demanding workplace settings. During the final year of the VET programme, our students spend 28 weeks in a range of different clinical workplace environments, with a focus on being involved as part of the clinical team. Feedback suggests that student experiences in clinical learning environments are not always positive, and students aren't always sure of how to raise or address concerns that they may have or make sense of experiences that they have in the workplace. So the Learning Environment Champions Initiative was developed to support the provision and maintenance of a positive, supportive and effective learning environment in that clinical workplace. And we engage both staff and students in the process. So our team of 8 Learning Environment Champions contributed to today's presentation, and we'll be presenting for you today, explaining more about the initiatives that we've developed throughout our scheme.
So collecting student feedback is obviously an important part of quality assurance and quality enhancement. And following a review of the literature, the Healthcare Education Micro-Learning Environment Measure, or HEMLEM, by Isba et al. Was deemed most appropriate as it met our aims and fitted with the department and discipline micro-environments within the small animal hospital. The HEMLEM comprises 2 6-item subscales measuring real-time student perceptions of staff attitudes and behaviours and teaching quality, which can be seen here on the right. It was validated with 16 healthcare professional student groups with a very good Cronbach's alpha. And the HEMLEM forms a core part of the LEC initiative and is anonymously administered using Microsoft Forms at the end of each rotation block. And students rate the 5-item Likert scale questions from strongly disagree to strongly agree for the core rotations that they've just completed. All students will have rated all rotations, though, by the end of their final year. And the findings from the HEMLEM can then be expanded upon within the end of rotation debrief block sessions, which are conducted by 2 Learning Environment Champions, and to which all students on the rotation block are invited to attend.
Final year rotations run as 48 weeks, split into 12 separate 4-week rotation blocks. This means students are present in the hospital on different services for 4 weeks at a time. Debrief sessions have been held at the end of each rotation block every 4 weeks. Students are uniquely placed as both our primary consumers, but also our initial feedback source. We organise a 1 to 2 hour session within their working day held in the small animal hospital. The session is held in a private meeting room and attendance is encouraged from all students in the hospital. During the session, we invite students to share their experiences from across all the rotations that have been run in the preceding 4 weeks. We try to make sure there is an opportunity to discuss all rotations, and these meetings are minuted. We wanted to create a safe space for students to share their experiences and for us to gather feedback regarding all aspects of the clinical teaching environment. What we wanted to know was what worked well, what didn't work well, and how that made students feel. We know that when students feel safe and supported, they are more comfortable to step out of their comfort zone and embrace learning. We wanted to know if they felt that in the small animal hospital, and if not, why not, and what could we do to make a difference. One of the most important aspects of this is confidentiality. We wanted students to be able to discuss their experiences without fear of repercussion or judgment. These debrief sessions are very much student-led. We invite them to talk about their experiences, and it is enlightening to hear what they have to say when we open up a space to allow them to do so. One of the best things about these sessions is it opens up lines of communication and means that students are more likely to seek out learning environment champions for help and advice even outside of the debrief sessions. These sessions also give us the opportunity to self-audit. Issues raised can be dealt with, and then students can be prompted at subsequent sessions to assess whether changes have been noted on the clinic floor. These sessions also give us the opportunity to feed back directly to the students regarding implementations in response to their feedback. This helps to hold us and the students accountable. We are constantly discussing issues and improvements, and it gives students a sense of involvement in the process. They can see their feedback as being actioned upon and can see that we care about what they are saying. This encourages them to be more open in subsequent sessions as they can see their feedback and have a positive impact in real time. It also allows us to follow up where action taken has not had the desired effect, allowing us to implement changes to help us improve the clinical learning environment.
So buy-in from staff members and those involved in teaching the students was also very important as part of creating better learning environments. So one of the good things that we were able to do was hold an away day with staff where we were able to have staff acknowledge what worked well with the teaching environments and as well as successes, share challenges that they've had in delivering good teaching to our students. We found that they were able to acknowledge that we all share the same goals for clinical teaching and come together really positively from that. One thing that came out of this was the development of a social contract. The social contracts showed us here that everyone does have a shared focus and shared goal. It gave the students something to point to when people were falling short of that, and kind of an action plan to make sure that staff members and students both had an understanding of what was expected from them to be able to improve the working and learning environment for all.
So another aspect is incivility in veteran education. It can drastically impact students' learning and well-being. And this is supported by literature, as we can see here on a study by Fora and Pearson. Incivility creates this hostile environment that leads to increased stress, hinders cognitive functions, affecting learners' academic performance. So implementing an onboarding course for staff, as we show here on this slide, can significantly mitigate the impact of incivility in veteran education. So by establishing clear expectations for conduct and demonstrating the value of respectful, supportive work environment, such courses like this can orient new staff towards positive interactions from the outset. This initiative not only fosters a culture of professionalism and kindness, but also enhances the learning experience for students by ensuring they are surrounded by a collaborative and respectful team.
Central to the initiative have been a series of staff-student partnerships. Certainly, Katie outlined the dialogue that occurs in the student debrief sessions and how important that is. We also involve our vet ed selective students, who are also final years, to work in partnership with our hospital staff teams to develop specific resources, often things that have been suggested within the student debrief sessions. We've got a couple of examples of these. A student induction video was developed by our two students, MacKenzie and Christina. They did a lovely video tour of the hospital from a student's eye view, and that now forms part of the standard student induction to the hospital. Similarly, our vet ed selective student Hannah this year worked along with one of the nurses, Susan, to develop a series of QR codes to put into the student lab that could help students to navigate this quite complicated environment.
So we have ethical approval now for a large-scale evaluation of the LEC initiative, which is going to take place over the next 2 to 3 years. And our main aim is to determine if the intended goal of improving student satisfaction, comfort and psychological safety has actually been achieved. So in the first arm of the project, we'll identify themes generated within the end of rotation HEMLEM survey and debrief sessions, and then go on to investigate these more deeply in an end of year focus group. The end of year learning environment survey will also collect data on student perceptions of civility within the small animal hospital and what further improvements could be made. And administering a standardised survey year on year will allow us to compare results over time to determine if the initiative is truly making a difference. Yearly patterns can also be explored. For example, do all year groups start off with poor perceptions, which naturally improve over time as they get closer to graduation and their confidence increases? And the second arm of the study is to evaluate the Learning Environment Champions initiative itself, both from the student and staff perspectives. For staff, we want to determine what the emotional impact of being an LEC is, and for students, we wish to see how they're engaging with the initiative and how they think it could be improved. One of the most important ethical considerations for the study, though, was gathering student feedback in this way, was making sure appropriate safeguarding measures were put in place. And of particular relevance were concerns regarding student wellbeing, psychological safety or distress in the hospital setting, or more seriously, allegations of bullying, harassment, discrimination or victimisation, which may have been uncovered in the student feedback. As noted in the two pathways shown here, concerns that arose at the time of the debrief session could be managed in person, with the individual students invited to confidentially discuss events further. While in the case of anonymous or retrospective concerns, the entire cohort would be contacted, addressing the concern and inviting affected individuals to waive anonymity and come forward for further support. In both situations, students would be signposted to University Counselling Services, the Student Support Office, and if appropriate, directed to submit an official report of the incident. In the event of a serious incident, a report would be submitted by one of the Learning Environment Champions as well. And student safety was a priority, and it was important that these measures were put in place to ensure no student was left unsupported.
So what we can conclude from this initiative is that for true learning to flourish, we need psychological safety environment. According to the Harvard professor Amy Edmondson, psychological safety is the belief that one will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with ideas, questions, concerns, or even mistakes. So ultimately, our aim is to provide students with a realistic clinical learning environment where they feel able to challenge themselves, be challenged, and step out of their comfort zone. When students are motivated and take accountability for their own learning within a safe space with supportive environment, we know that deep learning occurs and students can flourish. So thank you.